All right. So today what I'm going to touch on, I'm going to talk about motivation and commitment, which I think is kind of a good thing to talk about in the middle of the summer like we're at right now, because it's easy to go into this off season and be pumped, but it's tough to like maintain it as you go throughout the entire summer. So big thing with motivation and commitment is making sure that you remember your why. So remember why what did you set out to do this summer? What did you set out to do with baseball? What did you set out to do XYZ? Why do you do what you want to do? The big thing too is with motivation and commitment, a lot of times people think that you have to get motivated to start doing a new action, become motivated to start doing something. But at the end of the day, most times you feel motivated after you start doing it. Like that whole fake it till you make it ideology that you guys have probably heard of before. Same thing's true with confidence though, right? You don't become confident and then start acting like a confident person. You become confident because you act confident, right? And then all of a sudden you have confidence and faith in what you've been doing and how you've been doing it your entire way. And that allows you to carry that with you, okay? So like one of the first things when I talk about motivation is I always want to remind you guys that at the end of the day, it is not something you should feel before you start. It is a response that you get to momentum, right? Motivation a lot of the time is momentum. That's kind of the connection that you can make with it. Is that once you've started, once you start going, then all of a sudden you start feeling motivated to continue. Does that make sense? Same thing with confidence. You're going to feel more confident if you act confident. Fake it till you make it. So with that, you got to remember your why, and you got to remember your what. So like, why do you play baseball? Why do you want to be successful in baseball? And what specifically do you want? Right? Do you want to just be a good college player? Do you want to be a good teammate? Do you just want to play because you enjoy the game, but you don't care how good you do? Right? I knew my why for baseball is I knew I wanted to be standing here, talking to you guys today. I wanted to be a baseball coach, right? So for me, at the end of the day, as fun as it was for me to find a role that I was semi-successful in at my Division II school, that was great, but that wasn't my end-all be-all, right? Like that wasn't the end for me. My motivation was to be there, to learn, to be able to give back because baseball had given so much to me. Does that make sense? Okay. And you have to understand that both motivation and commitment are daily decisions. It's not something that you just, okay, hey, I have momentum. I did good yesterday, so I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to feel motivated. It's like, no, because I did it yesterday and I owe it to myself to do it again today, that's the momentum that I'm feeling, the motivation that I'm feeling to continue working towards my goals. Does that make sense? So a little bit of a process that I want you guys to walk through when you're trying to be motivated. The big thing with that is goals, right? Goal making and creating goals for yourself. But there's a process that you kind of have to follow in order for it to give you the best benefit of the doubt. Okay. So I want the goal to be specific. I want it to be measurable and it to have a time limit. Okay. So it's not something where it's just like, I want to, let's not even use baseball. Like I want to go to a Europe vacation eventually. Right? The people who say that never go, right? The people who say, I want to go to Europe by 2025, so I'm starting to save money now, right? They are the ones who go, right? And they have a why, they have a whatever, okay? But specific, measurable, and timed. So with that too, there's also the difference between a telescope and a microscope goal. So a telescope obviously is going to be like the moon, far away, okay? Long term, okay? Something that you want in the long term. And that's going to be made up. Like the journey to get there is going to be made up by a bunch of microscope goals along the way. Okay. So in order for you to stay motivated, you can't just say, oh, hey, I want to be a Major League Baseball player, right? You can't just say that. Or, hey, I want to be a starter on my team, right? It has to be like, okay, hey, I want to get XYZ tangible skill, improve it. Okay. I want to be able to have more quality ABs. Oh, in order to do that, I need to hit more often. Okay. Hey, my actual goal, my microscope goal to get myself to becoming a starter on whatever team I'm about to go to is to hit every day for a week, right? So then all of a sudden your motivation comes from, okay, hey, not, hey, how far away am I from this telescope goal, this long-term thing? But, okay, hey, did I accomplish these goals that I set out for myself weekly, right? And then monthly, and then every 6 months, then a year. Then all of a sudden 5 years down the road, you get to where you want to go. Does that make sense? Okay, I do have a little assessment that I want to read through for you guys about just motivation and commitment as a whole. okay? And I want you to just think about these answers. And if you want to give me feedback later, text it to me, whatever, we can talk about that then. But why do you play baseball? Just take some time to think about these. Think these through. What do you want to accomplish with baseball? What do you enjoy most about the game? What are the biggest challenges you face in the sport? When are you the most motivated? What are the biggest challenges you face with commitment? And this is the one where I would love some feedback on your own time. But what can I do as a coach to help get you to where you want to go? What would you like to see from a coach? Okay. But with that, one more thing about motivation and commitment, and then we'll go on. We're also going to talk a little bit about adversity today. Okay, so in addition to the telescope and microscope goals, one of the things that I really like to think about is everyone always says get 1% better. Okay, they say, okay, hey, I want to get 1% better every single day. That's a good goal. Okay, because at the end of the day, you're 365% of the human that you were when you started the year. You understand what I mean? That's a good goal. But what I don't like about that is how vague that is. 1% better in what? Right? 1% better how? Right? Are you 1% better as in you took 1% more swings, or you took 1% more ground balls, or you watched 1% more games, right? What is it? Right? But what I like is 14 minutes and 24 seconds, that's 1% of your day. Right? And so if you give whatever you want to get better at, 14 minutes and 24 seconds daily, you know that you spent 1% trying to get 1% better at whatever you're working towards your goal, right? And having that motivation, it's basically 15 minutes, right? And that's literally all you need to do in order to see long-term success, is give yourself, okay, hey, I want to get a little bit better at my situational awareness. Well, maybe you go through highlights or spend 15 minutes of just looking up baseball IQ, baseball strategy, baseball XYZ, okay? Or, hey, I want to get a little bit more mobile so that I can, my arm can lay back and I still stay healthier, right? Okay, spend 15 minutes on your mobility every day. Does that make sense, right? And then you have a tangible thing. You can go to bed at night knowing I spent 1% of my day trying to get 1% better at one thing. That make sense? Okay, so moving on to adversity for today. Just like the telescope and microscope goals, one of the things that I think is really valuable for us in sport is perspective, okay? So a lot of the time, especially in the moment, in the game, you're at bat, the play that you're supposed to make, this one batter, this one pitch, right, seems like it matters more than anything in the world, right? And that's a good thing for you to feel that way because you care, because it matters, because you want to be successful. But at the end of the day, that can put undue stress on you, okay? So just like the telescope, microscope goals, I recommend a lot of the time, when you're feeling adversity, when you're feeling the weight of the game, zoom out, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a privilege to play the kids' game, and everyone wants to play it for as long as possible. But at the end of the day, compared to bigger life issues, this is a small fraction of it. Does that make sense? So this idea of adversity, a thing that I like to use is compared to what? All right? Like there's people that you probably know in your life that are going through something much more difficult than the fact that they can't see breaking balls when they're at the plate. Right? You understand what I mean? Like children that get leukemia and die. Right? I know that's grim, but that's way more important. That's way tougher, right? Than being like, man, I didn't do as good at this game as I wanted to, right? And when we put it into perspective and we give it the power that it should have, then we are able to more successfully separate who we are and who we want to be in the sport that we play. Does that make sense? Instead of putting so much pressure on ourselves that, okay, hey, this matters so much, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying occasionally when the adversity gets to be too much, like, hey, zoom out and realize that this is a sport that we play because we love it, right? It's a beautiful sport that we play because we think that it's great, right? Not because it's the thing that matters most in the entire world. Does that make sense? So zoom out when you face adversity. It makes it a little bit lighter. Then you can free yourself up, right? Everyone always talks about whether it's a PO or a position player who quits playing, like all of a sudden I got so much better at hitting when I quit hitting because I didn't care about it anymore, right? Like, and I see it all the time where a position player is like, man, I got way better at fielding ground balls once I quit playing, right? And now they teach kids to field ground balls because it's fun. They're playing the game, right? They're not putting all the pressure of, hey, I have to do this on themselves. They're zooming out. They see real life. Does that make sense? So with that also, I want you to have the idea of embracing failure. Because at the end of the day, Kobe talks about this, is how he loves failing, he loves losing, because it teaches him something that he needs to improve on. It gives him evidence. It's his guide rails. Shows him where he wants to go. Okay, like, okay, hey, I sucked at this, I need to get better at it. Right? But if you're constantly winning, you never learn what you need to get better at. Does that make sense? But there's a Stoic philosophy idea about this that I really like listening to, called the obstacle is the way. So it's basically, if adversity is there, that's the direction you need to go in order to become the person that you're destined to, right? The person that you are supposed to be is on the other side of what is hard, okay? And so that mentality of like, okay, hey, I'm facing adversity, my goal is to meet it head on, because I want to get through and become the person who I am when I'm on the other side of that, okay? That's a great mentality to have because you're embracing failure. The other thing from a coaching perspective, is in this setting, in this college, summer ball setting, if you're not pushing yourself so far that you do fail, then you're wasting your time, right? You're not getting any better, right? It would be like you never going up in weights when you were lifting, right? Never trying to run faster, being like, oh, I've run fast enough, I'm just going to sit there, right? If you aren't failing, then you aren't pushing yourself to become the best that you can be. You're not maxing yourself out. You're not increasing that top end. Does that make sense? Okay. But the obstacle is the way. Turn adversity into an advantage. If something is difficult, run straight towards it, because there's something in that difficult task that you are meant to learn and you are meant to benefit from and meant to overcome. Okay? With that, you want to become comfortable being uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, there's weakness, there is not much life in comfort, right? The majority of you, all of you guys, especially you hitters this entire summer, have been getting out of bed when it's more comfortable to be staying in because you have a goal, right? Because you want something better for yourself. It's a lot easier to just stay in the comfort of your bed, the comfort of the covers, right? But there's no life to be lived within the realms of comfort. Does that make sense? You have to push yourself to be uncomfortable. You have to push yourself and do the things that are uncomfortable to get to where you want to go. Okay? With adversity, one thing I like to think about too is creating personal victories for yourself. Just small things that'll help you stay motivated, help you realize that you are still making progress, even if it's not the progress you want to see. So it's just bringing attention to the small things that you do. In baseball, I love this because there's so much that's outside of your control. But what you can control is the tiny, tiny things. Like, okay, hey, maybe I gave up a hit on that pitch and maybe it was the wrong pitch to throw, but I threw it where I wanted to. That's a small victory, right? At the end of the day, we got to learn from it. It's still a failure, but that gives yourself a little bit of something of like, okay, I was successful. Okay, hey, I went 0 for 3 today, but 2 of the times I hit the ball hard. Right? A little personal victory to help you stay motivated, help you realize like, hey, I'm not as far away from where I want to be as I thought I was. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you can't control where the fielders are positioned. You can't control what the umpire says. You can't control what the pitcher throws you. But you can control whether or not you're focused and paying attention and doing your best. Right? You can control that. Okay? Maybe I didn't hit the velo that I wanted to, but I was spinning the ball better than I have in years. Right? Those are the things that are going to allow you to be like stay and get through adversities. Bring attention to those small victories. They're going to make you feel better. Okay? And last thing I got for you guys today is that at the end of the day, resistance makes you stronger. Just back to that lifting analogy that I talked about earlier, if you just did bench press with no weight, you're not getting any better, right? But the resistance is what actually improves you. So when you face something that is difficult, no, it's no different than the weights. Okay, hey, I just went up in bench press. Let me get through this. I'm going to be better off because of it. That makes sense? And if you're not facing enough resistance, then push yourself more, okay? So embrace that that adversity that you're going to see, because that's what you want to have in order to get to where you want to go. That makes sense? Anything? Any questions? No? Appreciate you guys listening. Thank you.
Thanks, Cal.
Of course. Good stuff. Thank you. Thanks, dude.